Good evening, viewers. This is All 24 Nightly News broadcasting live from Algiers. I'm your host, Karim Zachary, and up next are the latest headlines. International tensions escalate as Niger's military council accuses France of imminent military intervention, while Russia calls for restraint and Germany suspends development aid to Niamey. Also ahead, China hails President Abdelmajid Tebboun's visit to Beijing as a resounding success. Also coming up, stalemate looms over Spain as government formation talks falter. People's Party urges dialogue to prevent institutional blockage, and Sanchez refutes opposition leader's proposal. And Russia thwarts Ukrainian drone attack on border province. Defense minister reports increase in strikes on Ukrainian military facilities. Hello again, and thank you for joining us. First off in our news, the military council in Niger has pointed fingers at France, accusing it of planning a military intervention to liberate President Mohamed Bazoum. The claims are based on a mandate allegedly signed by the government's foreign minister Hassouni Massaoudou amidst the tension. Chadian President Mohamed Idriss Déby arrived in Niamey on Sunday, initiating mediation efforts to resolve the country's critical situation. Our own Osama Ayadi brings us the latest updates. Let's follow.
Niger military coup leaders that seized power in country and detained President Bazoum accused France of plotting military intervention to reinstate the deposed president. Tensions in the region continue to grow in the wake of the coup, as the military leaders have threatened against any foreign intervention, explaining that it will only lead to bloodshed and chaos.
In keeping with its policy of seeking ways and means to intervene militarily in Niger, France, with the complicity of certain Nigerians, held a meeting at the headquarters of the Niger National Guard to obtain the necessary political and military authorizations.
A speech on national TV announced that France was searching for ways and means to intervene militarily in Niger and had held a meeting with the Chief of Staff of Niger's National Guard to obtain the necessary political and military authorizations. Leaders of the coup also alleged that the toppled government had authorized the French military to strike the country.
The use of digital, analog and electronic means to divulge information affecting the privacy, morale and psychological integrity of individuals, state security and national security is prohibited and punishable by penalties and imprisonment. As such, all offenders will be apprehended by the competent services of the defense and security forces and handed over to the courts.
France had previously condemned the coup in the West African country and called for Bazoum to be reinstated, but has not announced any intention to intervene militarily. The French Foreign Ministry did not confirm or deny the accusation that it wanted to take military action. However, they not only recognized Bazoum as the only legitimate authority in Niger, but they threatened against any violations on French citizens and interests there.
And in the same context, Germany announced the suspension of development aid and financial support to Niger post the military coup. German Foreign Ministry spokesman Sebastian Fischer made the announcement during a press conference in Berlin, stating that all direct payments to support the Niger government will be halted. Additionally, Katharina Kovin, a spokeswoman for the Ministry of Development, confirmed that bilateral cooperation in the field of development will also be suspended.
We are continuously monitoring the situation and agree with the demands with the African Union and ECOWAS that the country must return to democratic order. The coup leaders must return power to the democratically elected president. As the Ministry of Development, we already stopped all payments to the government of Niger last week. This morning, it was also decided to suspend bilateral development cooperation. We are in a close exchange within the German government and with our partners to monitor and assess developments in Niger.
The German government also has decided not to approve a plan for evacuating its citizens and soldiers from the country. However, they emphasized their readiness to handle any situation that may arise. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius stated that his country is carefully assessing its forces' status in Niger and considering the withdrawal of military personnel from Mali. The minister highlighted ongoing talks and preparations for various scenarios with different options. It's worth noting that the coup leaders in Niger have pledged to adhere to international agreements, but this assurance is yet to be confirmed.
Those who are responsible for the coup have declared that they want to abide by all international arrangements and agreements. That will have to be checked. I already said that we are also in the process of looking at alternative ways of getting our contingent out of Mali. This is all going on in parallel because simply we do not yet know what will happen in Niger, and we are preparing for alternative options.
So far, we haven't made any evacuation plans. We're of course prepared for everything, but the situation is currently such that this is not yet necessary. We're of course prepared for a possible deterioration of the situation, but this is not something seemingly happening soon at the moment. The crisis team of the federal government will meet again this afternoon and will take another close look at the issue, but so far we have no indications of a concrete danger to German personnel due to the coup in Niger.
And in the same context, the Kremlin expressed deep concern over the situation in Niger on Monday following the coup that ousted President Mohamed Bazoum. Many countries around the world have condemned the coup. The Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, in communication with reporters, called on all parties in Niger to show restraint and swiftly return to the legal system.
We're following the situation in Niger very closely, especially in the context that over the past week we have actually been very closely involved in African affairs together with our African colleagues. And of course what is happening there is a cause of serious concern and was of serious concern. We're in favor of the rule of law in the country being restored as soon as possible. We're in favor of restraint being shown on all sides so that this does not lead to human casualties.
Two different news now. Algeria Army General Said Shengriha, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, begins an official visit to Russia at the invitation of General of the Army Shoigu Sergei, Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation. The visit aims to strengthen cooperation between the two armed forces, addressing shared interests. On arrival, General Shengriha was warmly received by General Alexander Fomin, Deputy Minister of Defense, and Dmitry Shogev, Director of Federal Service for Military and Technical Cooperation. The meeting included a military parade by Russian Army units, followed by discussions between the two officials in the presence of the Algerian ambassador to Russia. Tanzanian Minister of Foreign Affairs Srogomina Tax arrived in Algeria on Monday for a working visit, attending the 5th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for Strategic Dialogue. She was warmly received by Algerian Foreign Affairs or Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf at Houari Boumediene International Airport in Algiers. The visit focuses on strengthening bilateral relations and enhancing cooperation between the two nations.
Dream common, dream shared, dream is to responsibility, you and I to give nations deeply rooted in solid groundings, a new era.
And in other news, China hailed the state visit of Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune to Beijing as a resounding success on all fronts. Speaking at a press conference in Algiers, the Chinese ambassador to Algeria, Li Jian, emphasized that the historic visit significantly strengthened the bond of friendship and cooperation between China and Algeria. Additionally, both parties took the opportunity to underscore the importance of seeking political and peaceful resolution to critical issues in Palestine, Yemen, Syria, Mali, and Sudan.
Une réaffirmation des relations historiques et amicales entre les deux pays.
The visit is a reaffirmation of historical and friendly relations between both countries. It's also an extraction that needs to be promoted firmly. including the development of bilateral relations for the next step. The joint statement issued by the two countries is considered as highly political and strategic. It constitutes a comprehensive political agreement that underscores consensus of both countries in all aspects, the positions and attitudes of both parties over political, economic and commercial relations, bilateral and multilateral cooperation, international and regional files are clearly and completely formed. We need to say that both Algeria and China have nothing but consensus.
Il faut dire que les deux pays entre l'Algérie et la Chine, on n'a rien d'autre que le consensus.
The Chinese ambassador to Algeria also expressed his country's firm stance on the Western Sahara file. China reaffirms its support for the United Nations efforts in seeking a peaceful and equitable resolution to the issue. Let's listen.
Le sujet de l'Ouest de Sahara occidental.
Regarding the Western Sahara file, I think the joint statement is clear. This is the approach we're taking. Our position falls within the United Nations approach to settling the file. It is a fixed position and will not change.
Des Nations Unies. Notre position ne change jamais.
To the aftermath of the July 23rd general elections in Spain now. The highly fragmented parliament has triggered intense negotiations to form a government. As the nation awaits the outcome of these negotiations, the future course of Spain's governance hangs in the balance. Salman Asib has the story.
After the highly fragmented parliament resulting from the July 23rd general elections in Spain, negotiations to form a government are now in full swing. Outgoing Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's firm stance in ruling the country has drawn criticism from the Spanish Popular Party, accusing him of neglecting the public interest. Cuca Gamarra, the Secretary General of People's Party, is demanding that Sanchez acknowledge the election outcome and engage in dialogue with Alberto Fijo. She believes Sanchez should prioritize the future of the country and foster necessary discussions.
Pedro Sánchez ha sido el primer presidente.
Pedro Sánchez is the first losing candidate who refuses to admit his defeat and refuses to accept the invitation of the winner of the elections to meet him. I'm sure that if Feijóo's message was from any of the leaders of the separatist parties that threaten the stability of the country, Sanchez would not have taken half a minute to make himself available. Sanchez should think about the public interest of Spain instead of thinking about governance. We have to sit and talk about the future of our country.
Meanwhile, Pedro Sanchez's frequent statements indicate his concern about the serious threats facing Spain's political landscape.
The election results show that those who propose withdrawal and retreat are not the majority. I am convinced that there is a large social majority that supports us to move forward. And now it's time to translate it into a parliamentary majority in the House of Representatives. What we will do once the government is formed is to work towards achieving an inauguration that allows us to continue progressing for 4 years more.
Forming a government after the recent elections is no simple task, as Fijo acknowledges the absence of regional parties, which haven't allowed his party to return to power for almost half a century. As for Sanchez, he is known for his gambler's personality, willing to take risks to defy the odds. The country awaits the outcome of these negotiations, which could shape the future course of Spain's governance.
To other story now, the UN support mission in Libya, led by Abdullah Bathili, updated President Mohammed al-Manfi on their efforts to communicate with various Libyan parties and facilitate consensus on holding parliamentary and presidential elections. Al-Manfi emphasized the Presidential Council's commitment to its national role in fulfilling the Libyan people's will and aspirations. In Khartoum, violent clashes persisted with a series of explosions rocking the north of central Khartoum. Warplanes targeted rapid support forces locations and anti-aircraft support forces responded in the north. The Sudanese civil aviation authorities extended the country's airspace closure until August 15th, except for humanitarian aid and evacuation flights. The situation remains tense as the conflict continues to unfold. To other story now, sporadic protests erupted in Senegal's capital on Monday, denouncing the placing of opposition figure Ousmane Sonko under judicial control on charges of plotting against the state and calling for rebellion. Demonstrators blocked major roads with burning tires and gravel trucks, leading to significant traffic jams in the city. Simultaneously, the Minister of Communication issued a statement announcing the restriction of internet services to curb the spread of hate messages on social networks. In response to his arrest and to block his candidacy for the upcoming presidential elections, dissident Ousmane Sonko began a hunger strike, as he revealed on social media. Algerian Foreign Minister Mr. Ahmed Attaf expressed condemnation and solidarity with Islamabad after the terrorist attack in Pakistan last Sunday. The death toll from the suicide bombing at a political gathering has reached 54, with 10 injured victims succumbing to their injuries on Monday. Over 80 more injured individuals are still receiving treatment, raising concerns that the death toll may actually increase further.
بكل شدة أستسمعكم بأن أستهل كلمتي هاته.
Allow me to begin this speech by expressing my sincere condolences to the Republic of Pakistan following the terrorist attack that it was subjected to, which we strongly condemn. We and our brothers in Pakistan share their pain and distress.
ومحنتهم.
During the 18th extraordinary session of the Council of Foreign Ministers of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Algerian Foreign Minister Mr. Ahmed Attaf called for collective action and strong response to prevent the resurrection of several incidents involving the desecration and burning of copies of the Holy Quran in Sweden and Denmark. Mr. Attaf condemned these acts as flagrant violations of coexistence values and a clear provocation of the feelings of Muslims worldwide. He also reiterated Algeria's rejection of any attempts to justify such assaults on religious sanctities under the pretext of freedom of expression, emphasizing that such actions should be held accountable and not shielded by claims of democracy.
فهدف هذا اللقاء
The goal of this meeting is to examine the issue of highest importance and sensitivity that requires a collective action and firm response from us, which is similar to the seriousness of the current situation and what it generates as reactions of indignation in our Muslim community that was attacked in its values and what it holds as most sacred. The recent and repeated acts of desecration and burning of copies of the Holy Quran in Sweden and Denmark is a flagrant violation of the values of coexistence and mutual respect and a lamentable provocation of all Muslims' feelings across the globe.
And in different news, supporters of Bangladesh's opposition National Party BNP rallied in Dhaka, demanding Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation and calling for the next election in January 2024 to be held under a neutral caretaker government. Accusations of authoritarian and human rights violations have been leveled against Hasina's administration, which has rejected the opposition's demands. Despite internal challenges, the main opposition party has organized protest rallies in recent months. Let's follow.
Tensions are running higher in Bangladesh as opposition parties push the government to step aside ahead of a national election. Western critics condemn violence and the economic outlook darkens. Opposition activists clashed with security forces over the weekend as they sought to stage a major rally to pressure Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government.
We only have one demand. Sheikh Hasina must step down, and we demand a national election under a caretaker government. I will not go home before this happens.
According to the State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller, the United States is concerned about reports of intimidation and political violence during protests in Bangladesh over the weekend against Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina.
We encourage the government of Bangladesh to investigate reports of violence thoroughly, transparently, and impartially, and to hold the perpetrators of violence to account.
Responding to the escalating violence, Interim Regional Director of South Asia at Amnesty International underlined the urgent need to de-escalate the situation in Bangladesh, as it threatens further violations of rights of the people and is likely to perpetuate more violence and turmoil in the months leading to the upcoming general elections.
The violence over the weekend is deeply worrying and may have implications for the human rights situation before, during, and after the elections. Instead of cracking down on protesters, the authorities should fulfill their duty to facilitate the right to freedom of expression and peaceful assembly.
It's worth recalling, on July 28 and 29, Bangladesh's main opposition party and other groups protest calling for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation and demanded a caretaker government to be appointed leading up to the elections in January 2024. The protests ended with violent clashes with the police, with several media videos alleging the protesters and opposition parties' leaders being attacked and arrested.
To the tense situation between Russia and Ukraine now. On Monday, Russia claimed to have thwarted a Ukrainian drone attack in the eastern Bryansk province, hitting a police station without casualties. And Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu revealed escalated strikes on Ukrainian military facilities in response to the attacks. Let's follow with Islam Said.
A tragic incident resulted in 2 people losing their lives and 6 others being injured due to shelling. The head of the Russian annexed Donetsk, Denis Pushlin, took to Telegram to express his outrage, citing a civilian bus and residential buildings hit by Ukrainian shelling as the cause of the casualties. Simultaneously in Russia, the authorities reported a foiled Ukrainian drone attack on a border area in the eastern Bryansk province, luckily causing no casualties, but raising tensions in the region. As the situation unfolds, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu revealed a significant escalation in the Russian strikes on Ukrainian military facilities. He stated that this aggressive response was a reaction to attacks on Russian territory, portraying the growing intensity of the conflict.
Over the past month, due to the successful actions of our troops, the enemy's losses totaled more than 28,000 servicemen. To be precise, 20,824 soldiers and 2,227 units of various weapons. It is obvious that the Western arms are not equating the success on the battlefield and only prolong the military conflict.
Moreover, Shoigu pointed out Ukraine's challenges with their counteroffensive, suggesting it wasn't going as planned and that they were squandering billions of dollars on Western-supplied weapons.
Given the current situation, we took additional measures to improve defense against attacks from the air and sea. The intensity of strikes against Ukrainian military facilities, including those used to conduct these terrorist acts, has been increased many times over.
With 17 months of conflict behind them, Ukraine faces immense pressure to achieve decisive gains on the battlefield, especially after receiving Western weaponry. Despite these efforts, Russia claims Ukraine's counteroffensive to be a failure.
For more news making headlines around the globe, here's the news in brief by Sofian Kanturina.
State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said the U.S. government officials will attend the Ukraine Peace Summit in Saudi Arabia. The Wall Street Journal reported a few days earlier that Saudi Arabia would invite Western states, Ukraine, and major developing countries to talks and try to reach an end for the conflict. Iran's foreign minister said on Monday after meeting with his Syrian counterpart, Faisal Muqdad, who was in Tehran for talks, that Zionists are the main source of instability in the Middle East. Hossein Amir Abdulhayyan also condemned Zionists' continued attacks on Syria. Greece and Cyprus on Monday welcomed moves by Turkey to boost relations with the European Union, but said approachment should be gradual and not unconditional. European Union foreign ministers said on July 20 that they were ready to re-engage with Turkey, but stopped short of offering Ankara a clear resumption of membership talks. Thousands of Bulgarians protested outside the court building in Sofia on Monday to call for stronger measures to tackle violence against women. This comes after a recent knife attack on a young woman in the town of Stara Zagora, which indeed caused outrage. This is worth noting that more than 40 towns across the country were present in demonstrations. Russian opposition politician Vladimir Kara-Murza lost an appeal against his 25 jail sentence. Kara-Murza, who holds a Russian and British citizenship, was jailed for 25 years in April for treason and spreading false information about conflict in Ukraine.
Well, we reached the end of our program. For more updates, visit our social media platforms. Thank you for watching, and join us again tomorrow for more news. Take care.